Hello, so today I'm out in nature showing you some of the plants that we'll be working with for the full moon rituals. So I'll be starting with hawthorn and we'll be learning how to make a tincture, a little potion for our ritual out of hawthorn, and then I'll be sharing blackthorn, which is hawthorn's sort of witchy sister. And blackthorn's very much famous for the berries, sloe berries, which we make sloe gin out of. So even if you're not using the tinctures for rituals, we can also use them for medicinal and just enjoyment purposes as well. Hawthorn is one of my favourite trees. At the minute it is abundant with rich red berries, which are traditionally known to support and protect the heart. And this works on a physical level for cardiovascular issues, but also on an emotional and spiritual level. So therefore we'll be working with hawthorn to bring in that sort of love and heart protection at the same time as heart opening, to really tune into the Venus, Venusian energy of this full moon in Taurus. So this will really complement nicely if you don't have any rose nuts, and hawthorn is actually in the same family as the Rosaceae family, and something that you can easily access if you want to try experimenting with herbs. I'm just picking some hawthorn berries, and what I'll be doing is filling the whole jar full of hawthorn berries, and then I'll be pouring brandy over as my medium for tincturing. So you can use something like brandy, you can use vodka, you can use a higher strength alcohol as well. There's loads of different techniques you can use to make your own tincture, and people that don't want to use alcohol, you can also use something like vinegar or honey. The only thing with those is that they don't last as long as a tincture. The best thing about hawthorn is that it's just a food as well as a medicine. So you can also turn it into something like a hawthorn ketchup or hawthorn jam. Really experiment. The seeds are quite big in the hawthorn, but they are just delicious to nibble upon as well. So I'm here with the lovely blackthorn tree, and blackthorn can actually commonly be found next to hawthorn. So you might have a couple of them both if you want to be working with either blackthorn or hawthorn. And if you're familiar with sloe gin, this is the tree where we get our sloes from. So as you can see, we have a sloe berry here, and I'm not actually going to pick from this tree because it's quite young, there aren't as many sloes on it, and I will be, instead, I've got some sloes at home, but if you did find blackthorn, which has a lot of sloes on, then all you simply need to do is make your tincture in the same way as I demonstrated with the hawthorn berry. So fill your jar up with sloes, and then you can add something like brandy, vodka, or of course you can make sloe gin. The sloe berry is quite tart, so you might want to add a bit of sugar to make it more palatable, and you can turn it into some really delicious syrup as well. So I've been busy foraging lots of hawthorn berries, and I'm going to make a tincture. So it's as simple as pouring brandy in to cover, and you'll notice I have included a few stalks. I'm not as fussy and think it can still work very well with a bit of extra foliage in it, because in the end you will be straining this out. So here we go, we have our tincture, and what you might want to do is the next day some of the alcohol slightly evaporates, so you can top it back up with brandy, and then you can leave it. So once we've made our tincture, we can then leave the tincture to infuse for a certain amount of time, and then we'll be straining off the plant material, and we'll be left with the alcohol infused with the medicinal beautiful properties of the plants. So I often get asked, how long should we be leaving it for? Now this really depends on the type of herbal medicine we're practicing, the type of plants, and also how we personally feel about using it. So a traditional method of making a tincture will be preparing it on the new moon and then using it on the full moon, or vice versa, depending on how you're working with your lunar cycles. So if you're watching this before the 16th of October, you could make it on the 16th, and then it will be ready to use on the full moon on the 31st of October, Halloween. However, you can also keep the plant material in there for longer, because if, for example, you've not been able to access fresh hawthorn berries, you can actually use dried hawthorn berries, and therefore what you want to do when you're using them medicinally is let them infuse for a bit longer when you're working with dried plant material. So it really does depend. So I would say also, because we're going to work with more of the energetics of the plants than their medicinal qualities, then even sort of a shorter period of time will still be able to capture some of that magic. So if you're still running a bit late, what you perhaps do is make a tea with hawthorn, the fresh hawthorn, so you're still getting the lovely qualities to work with during the ritual, rather than having to wait for a month or so to make a tincture. So it really depends, and there'll be lots of options in the ebook that you will also be sent in describing how you can do this. So I thought I'd come to the kitchen now because there won't be any background noise, and I realised I didn't share why I particularly wanted to show you Blackthorn. And this is because Blackthorn is a wonderful tree for helping clear emotional blockages, move stagnant energy, and therefore would be really helpful to be used during the cord cutting part of the full moon ritual. It also pairs wonderfully with hawthorn, so we'll be releasing the blockages using Blackthorn, and then hawthorn will help us bring in the love. And similarly, you can also use the rose potion you may have made with us back in the new moon in Gemini. And if you haven't done either, it does not matter. If you don't want to work with hawthorn, you don't want to work with Blackthorn, you don't want to work with rose, I have provided some alternative plants in the ebook that you might want to explore. And if you're not comfortable with foraging, you can also find these, they're all items of commerce, so you can get your own rose petals or hawthorn berries and just buy them from a herbal supplier. And then finally, I will also be offering you a full moon ritual bundle, so all of this can actually be sent to your doorstep, so all you need to do is open the package and use it on Halloween when we will be sharing this with you. So I wanted to finally finish by showing you how to make a dried rose petal tincture. So unfortunately we are out of rose season, so if you wanted to work with rose, and to be honest we all want to work with rose, it is ultimately a beautiful flower of love and protection, and so therefore you can just buy the dried rose petals. So I have some here and we'll be making a tincture with that too. I filled my jar about a quarter full this time of the dried rose petals. So when you're using dried herbs, they've obviously lost all their water weight, so therefore you don't need to fill the jar completely to the top because they're going to be a lot smaller in volume. And I'm going to be using brandy again, it is one of my favourites, but of course just to remind you, you can use honey, you can use vinegar, you can use alcohol of your preference, you could even make a lovely wine. So however you want to macerate the petals of the rose, as I said, I'll be doing brandy right now, and then I'll be leaving this for a few weeks, and then it will be ready for the full moon in Taurus.